time now for perspective. Across the world, governments and companies pour a lot of time and energy into their quest for diversity, a direct response to citizens demanding that their cultural and ethnic realities be reflected in the institutions that represent them. So what are the best ways to foster genuine diversity without falling into the trap of vacuous virtue signalling? Well, my guest today is art historian, curator and broadcaster Aindrea Emelife. Thank you so much for speaking to us on France 24 today. Now, you are an art historian. You studied at a very prestigious art school, the Courtauld Institute. What drew you to study art history in the first place?
My route to art history was quite unconventional. My parents aren't so into art, but I went to a school in London and they really fostered the belief that art can change the world and art can change perspectives. And so I wanted to study art history because I wanted to look into the past before I started on my sort of journey to looking into contemporary art and curating contemporary art, which is what I do now. But what's quite interesting about studying at the Courtauld is this incredible place, and it was an incredible course. But what I found is that I wanted to unravel these pockets of art history that aren't looked on so much. And so that's one of the main focus in my curating. It's looking at narratives, whether it's Black contemporary art or art by women or art by communities that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in the big institutions, but obviously that's changing now, and shining light on them and telling a fuller story of the world.
And you recently curated an exhibition in London called Citizens of Memory, about nostalgia and collective memory, specifically regarding the Black experience. In your experience, how do Black communities, Black artists experience nostalgia memory differently from non-Black artists? What did you find there?
I was approached, I was sort of drawn to the idea by looking at my own sort of history and my own identity. I'm British-Nigerian, so I'm a diaspora. And there was a lot of looking back and romanticizing the past over the last year, over lockdown. And I think that in general, we tend to romanticize our youth. And what I learned and what I sort of picked up on is that a lot of the things that I hold close as part of my identity are imagined or told, because these are stories and histories that are not lived experience. I lived all my life in Britain, but that you still hold connection to, and that you hold your home becomes the stories and your history. And so I wanted to see how artists were reckoning with this. And quite a lot of Black British artists and Black American artists seem to do this because I guess there's a big diaspora presence in both countries. And so incredible artist Tunji Adeneyi-Jones, who is a British-Nigerian painter who looks at his heritage in Nigeria and looks at unraveling those stories, but fusing them into a art historical context. And then there was Rachel Jones, who really explores her Black female interiority through her abstract works. And then Cassie Namoda is a great example as well, who looked into her Mozambique history and took stories from her past and from historic past and gave them light. And I think what's interesting now is that young painters, young artists are very much considered with the past and what that means for the future. We're very utopic, very sort of curious to see how we can build upon our histories and create better stories and just be very informed. And I think it's quite an interesting point to look at the Black experience for that example, because nostalgia, it wasn't always romantic, as we know. There were very dark and shadowy corners of the Black experience in history. And so learning about that and seeing how that's changed and how that should continue to change in art was very fascinating. And it was a lovely exhibition.
And you talked there about the British and American Black diaspora. Should we then assume that the Black experience as experienced by people from African countries is distinctly different, and does that express itself very differently in art produced in the African diaspora and in Africa?
Definitely. So I've had lots of great conversations with artists that are working in Africa, mostly working with artists in Nigeria because I'm fascinated and really want to do a lot of this exploration that I was talking about previously myself for my own curatorial and writing practice. And what I've learned is that it is completely different because in living in Nigeria or living in Africa, you are not the minority and you don't have that distinct rub against and distinct reminder of being different. The othering of being Black is nuanced by every country that you take as an example, whether it's America or Britain. But living in a country where it's when you're not the minority, it impacts how you express yourself and how you create art. Although you could also say that there are different things that we would then focus on in terms of the Black experience, whether it's looking at historical approaches to art. There's a lot of work to be done in Africa in terms of enriching our museums and art schools and encouraging the arts as well. And so there's a different rub against in that way. But it is a stark difference. And it's really exciting to see the difference as well and to see more artists that are actually working on the continent being shown, because generally when art museums and art galleries do show Black artists, they tend to be Black Americans, second Black British, but we need to be looking to the continent because there's incredible creativity there as well.
And do you think that's something that UK-based museums are excited about, that they're actively seeking, or is that something that still needs to be worked on?
I think they are very excited about it. I mean, they're different. A lot of the museums and the programming that's forthcoming is focusing on the general landscape of Black British art. There's a great show coming up at Tate that focuses on Caribbean British art, for example. But I think now, more than ever, there's so much excitement in West Africa. Specifically, Ghana has become a titan in the art world with incredible artists like Amwaka Boafo, really shining light on the creativity that comes from the continent. And I think, and I might be biased, that Nigeria has really risen and is continuing to rise as somewhere to look to. David Adjaye, for example, is putting a lot, doing some great work in both Ghana and Nigeria. Yinka Shonibare is about to open an incredible project as well. And there's just a lot of excitement on the continent. And I think if art is supposed to be transformative, I think it's incredible and exciting to put it in those places as well. Places where you can inspire hope and really rub against the politics of those countries. As much as there's so much work to be done in Britain and America, I think that art should reach all corners of the world and really impact. So it's really exciting for the British museums and museums in the West to be looking forward to working with African artists, because that attention will validate and enrich the artistic communities in those countries and create a better sort of exchange.
And you were recently appointed to the Mayor of London's Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm. Congratulations, no mean feat. I think you're 27 years young. Which parts of the public realm are you most excited to tackle?
I guess it's a similar thing. I love public art. I actually grew up in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, which is very lovely. But I think where the public art will impact more people is in the areas where there are maybe a bigger population of lower income backgrounds. I think that art really has the potential to change how we view other people, how we view societies, how we view ourselves. And I think instilling sort of an idea of hope, or creating art that sparks debate, sparks joy, does all these things that public art should do. It should inspire, but it should also encourage conversations, difficult conversations, joyful conversations. And I think that is most meaningful in the boroughs and in the areas of London that need that hope and need that sort of go against a bit more. So I'm most excited to look most at councils in Hackney and Camden and in South London, because my journey to be an art historian is very lucky. I went to a great school that really allowed me to think that I could work in this field. But how many other, little Black girls in Peckham or in Brixton or other areas of London will have that opportunity? And I think that's why I'm very focused on doing a lot of work publicly as well, so that people and other sort of children or young people from different backgrounds can see that they can work within a museum, they can work in the art world, because they need that visibility and they need that trust and hope that they can do things outside of the box. So I'm very excited to be doing things in sort of areas that I think need it most, but also to be hopefully working with some great commissions on this project.
Really exciting stuff. I'm sorry, we are going to have to leave it there. That's all we've got time for. But Aindrea Emelife, art historian and curator, thanks so much for taking this time to speak to us at France 24 today.
Thank you so much.